2 weeks ago, 4chan targeted the T dating advice app for women. Thousands of government IDs were leaked, user DMs were breached, and a volley of lawsuits are on the way. But just when you thought this story couldn't get any stranger, someone tried to exploit the situation by creating a rival app, T on Her. Riding on a wave of drama, it's become the #2 lifestyle app on the App Store, just behind the OG. This app is essentially a clone of the original, but it flips the script. It's for men to gossip about women. However, T on Her took their copycatting a bit too far and accidentally duplicated the exact same vulnerability that made the original T app end in disaster. Also in your hacking news roundup, cybercriminals try and fail to hack ATMs with a Raspberry Pi. But first, what went down in the original T app hack? If you want to skip the recap, just skip ahead to this timecode. This app markets itself as a suite of dating safety tools exclusively for women, who can use the app to research their potential dates, like check if they have a criminal record, make sure they're not being catfished, and just generally gossip about their dates with other women. The safest place to spill tea, they say. Except the app wasn't so safe, and spilled the tea of its users to 4chan. An Anon took to the poll board and claims that the T app doxes all of its users. The Anon explains that the app uses Firebase, which is a platform run by Google that app developers can use to outsource their backend. So instead of developers running their own servers, Google can do it for them, handling things like authenticating users and storing user data. Problem being that the Firebase bucket storing gigabytes of user images was misconfigured and didn't require any authentication to access. On top of that, in order to even use the app, you need to upload a photo of yourself to prove that you're a woman, a photo which the app, as well as the privacy policy, claim is deleted immediately after verification and not stored. However, that clearly wasn't the case, with thousands of photos of T-app users spilling straight onto 4chan. And grabbing these supposedly deleted photos from Firebase was as easy as loading a URL, and Anons of course shared scripts to help automate the scraping process. For an app that claims to provide an anonymous way to gossip about your dates, this is an absolute disaster. Many of the leaked photos even include government IDs. In total, 72,000 images were leaked, that's 13,000 verification selfies, and another 59,000 images from posts and even direct messages. But this spilling of tea wasn't just a breach, it's turned into a bit of a phenomenon, with someone even using the leaked photos to create a hot or not kind of a website, allowing people to rate all of its users, which has proved to be itself very controversial. Cybercriminals have also gotten involved, with one putting together a 55GB dump of the stolen images, making it freely available for anyone to download. However, T-app developers say not to worry because the breach only involved a legacy system from over 2 years ago, which would explain why for an app with over 1 million users, only a few tens of thousands of images were leaked. But the drama didn't end there, because just 3 days after the breach, there was another breach. And in regular fashion, the sequel is way worse than the original. Now, not just photos, but millions of private messages sent between T users were exposed and accessible by pretty much anyone. This was discovered by a security researcher who spilled the tea to 404 Media. He sent them a database of over 1 million private messages, and given the nature of the T app, the messages here are highly sensitive and include topics like cheating husbands, abortions, all kinds of stuff will be in here, just use your imagination. And this data is not 2 years old. Timestamps show that some of these messages are as new as just last week. The app developer responded to the sequel by disabling their direct message functionality altogether. But the good news for T users is that the researcher who discovered this database of DMs didn't head to Channel 4, but rather has responsibly disclosed it. But that didn't matter to 10 women who have already filed lawsuits, and if more people join the fray, this could end up costing the company millions of dollars. But in the last week, a new app has spawned, T on Her. Keen to replicate the success of the original T app, this app is essentially the same concept, but for men. Users can make profiles of women they've dated and tag them with green or red flags depending on their experience. The app has been designed with vengeance. If you take a look at the description, much of this is just copied and reworded from the original T app. And just like the OG, it's a little controversial, with the reviews suggesting it's attracted a particularly creepy user base, and others wondering whether exposing random women is even legal. In order to use the app, you have to upload government-issued ID, but after that's done, you can choose to use the app anonymously. But T on Her took their copying a bit too far and recreated the same vulnerability that made the original T app a total mess. Researchers at TechCrunch discovered that the images of government ID that the app requires you to upload are publicly accessible. Just like with the original app, anyone with a link to the images can just load them in the browser. The flaw also exposes usernames, email addresses, and selfies, and the fact that the app has 53,000 users. The researchers aren't giving us the technical tea on how they discovered this, because as far as I can tell, there's no indication that the problem has actually been fixed. The developer, Newville Media, ignored the researchers' emails, and interestingly, their Instagram bio leads with "the forefront of AI." AI which might have played a part in development, which might help explain the app's leaky database. The researchers also found that credentials belonging to the app's creator were left totally exposed on their server in plain text. The creds seemed to provide access to the app's admin panel, but the researchers weren't willing to break a couple laws to test that theory. Unlike the original T-App hack, none of the user data from this app has ended up in data dumps on Twitter, 4chan, or cybercrime forums, at least not yet. Next up, a group of money-hungry cybercriminals tried hacking a bank with a Raspberry Pi. The plan of attack was to take a Raspberry Pi and equip it with 4G capabilities so that it could be controlled remotely. Then they physically breached the premises of a bank and found the network switch that connects the bank's ATMs to the bank's central server. The hackers connected the Pi to this switch and left the scene, opting to do the rest remotely. Now, it is pretty rare for hackers to pull a Mr. Robot, leaving their laptop at home and going and doing their hacking IRL. It just brings a whole new dimension of things that can go wrong, like leaving fingerprints on the Pi, a serial number leading back to you, CCTV. But it is pretty likely that our hackers mitigated this risk by bribing some underpaid employee to plant the Pi. But regardless, making the effort to plant a Pi IRL has big upsides. It totally bypasses firewalls and gains an instant backdoor into the bank's network. UNC 2891, otherwise known as Light Basin, is the group behind this. They've been active since 2017 and specialize in targeting banks. The ultimate goal here was to pivot through the bank's network and hack the ATM switching server. This server acts as a kind of hub which ATMs connect to in order to authenticate cash withdrawal requests. Here, Light Basin planned to deploy CakeTap, a rootkit which would have allowed them to spoof ATM authorization messages and make fraudulent ATM cash withdrawals. After deploying the Raspberry Pi, Light Basin was successful in moving laterally through the bank's network, hacking the network monitoring server and the bank's mail server. However, the plan started to fall apart when the Raspberry Pi was discovered by an employee and disconnected. But since the mail server had internet access, Light Basin was still able to access their backdoor and continue their attack. But this is when cybersecurity company Group IB got involved, detecting the intrusion and nerfing Light Basin's access entirely. So in this case, Light Basin was unsuccessful in making those ATMs go brrr. As always, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.